props, and futures for tonight's action. Bettor Sports Betting wants to know what picks you're playing tonight. Tell us in the live chat on YouTube, Twitter, and the Bettor Sports Network app. This is Bettor Sports Betting with Fantasy Alarm's Dan Servodidio.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome in here to the Bettor Sports Betting Show on Bettor Sports Network and Fantasy Alarm, YouTube's, the BSN app, Twitter, wherever you guys are jumping in here on a Thursday afternoon. Appreciate everyone joining in here. And John, what's up, man? I got Jon Impemba with me to talk some football, some baseball on this Thursday. What's up?
Yeah. Listen, this is going to be my last Thursday appearance with you, Servo. Grande is back next week. I know you're heartbroken to hear it, but so hopefully we give out some winners tonight for some Thursday night football and send me off on a good note here.
The collective crowd groans there with you announcing your leave from these Thursday shows, but.
I know every Tuesday,
Yeah, I know on Tuesdays we'll be touching on some betting lines for the NFL upcoming week and everything. So, but yeah, today we got a full show. We're obviously going to be previewing tonight's Vikings-Eagles Thursday night football matchup. Give out some picks and some props for that game. Some baseball picks for this Thursday night slate. Smaller slate of games, but we still got some picks to give out. Me and John, and then. I'll be giving out some college football week 3 picks as well later on in the show because we got not like some marquee matchups as we've had. Last week we had like Texas, Alabama,
right.
Some good games, but next week we have some good games, but still enough some intriguing matchups. I'll give you some bets that I'm on and tell you where I'm leaning. Give you some info on the Bettor Edge contest too that we're running. So. Stay tuned for all that. But, yeah, we got to start with this Thursday night football game because it's going to be a great one. I'm an Eagles fan, so I am pumped for it. It's going to be an awesome prime time game at the Link. It's always awesome for Eagles fans. But betting-wise, we got the Eagles at 6.5-point favorites right now. 49 is the over-under wherever you're looking. I know these are from DraftKings, but similar odds across sports books wherever you're looking. Before we give out any specific picks or anything that you got, you're leaning towards, the things that you're looking for in this matchup, or any overall expectations for this one?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the headlines here are a couple of things, mostly on the Eagles side of the football, right? No Kenneth Gainwell, already ruled out here, and then the defensive issues that Philly, last week, Mac Jones threw all over this Eagles secondary, and they're supposed to be one of the best defensive secondaries in the NFL, and then he come into this week and James Bradbury's hurt. Some other pieces in that defense are dealing with some injuries there, so they're not at 100%, and they're running up against an offense in Minnesota that, while we know Kirk Cousins' prime time history, still has Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson, and that crew. So I'm very interested to see how the Eagles defense performs here. In this game at home, obviously they open the season on the road. Can they live up to the kind of the hype that people build them at? And, what does the running back situation now look like with Kenneth Gainwell out? Rashad Penny was a healthy and active last week. Is he active? Does he play? Is it Swift? Is it Scott? What happens with the Eagles running game? Those are the two top headlines for me.
Yeah, the Vikings coming off a week 1 loss at home against the Buccaneers as I think 5.5-point favorites, and they end up losing that one.
Yeah.
And the Eagles won by 5 against the Patriots, but if it wasn't for like that pick 6 and a short fields in the beginning of the game, then it could have gone easily the Patriots' way there and almost covered too in the fourth quarter, almost covered the spread. So yeah, interesting games coming off for both teams here. You mentioned the injuries. I mean, yeah, so the Eagles, you mentioned Bradbury, but Nakobe Dean, their middle linebacker, is on IR now, so he's out for this game. Fletcher Cox comes in questionable with like a rib injury. They also have Reed Blankenship, who has been questionable. He might even be ruled out at this point, but he is unlikely to play either way, so that's their safety if you're looking at the Viking side of things from the passing standpoint. The Vikings, by the way, their starting center is out for this game. Their top edge rusher, Marcus Davenport, is questionable to play. And their one of their starting tackles, Christian Darrisaw, is also questionable and possibly is out too. So these are kind of the injuries to monitor before, once we get inactives about an hour and a half before kickoff. So for tonight's game, just kind of keep that in mind if you're looking for any bets or player props. if any lines move before, once inactives come out before kickoff.
Yeah, obviously the offensive line is going to be a thing to watch for Minnesota. Jalen Carter was immediately like one of the best defensive linemen in all of football after week one. If you look at his times pressured and all those things, all the statistics there. So not having their centers out, that's usually not a great thing when you're going up against a premier defensive
not
front
ideal.
seven that Philly's going to have. So we'll see how quickly Cousins can get the ball out of the pocket. Like I said, though, Mac Jones threw for 330 yards. Now, how much of that was maybe the Eagles lax a little bit because they had such a big lead early on, but down the stretch there, he was hitting the seams and the middle of the field. The Eagles had some trouble covering the middle of the field there. So with Hockenson and Addison and Jefferson, guys that are prone to attack, between the seams, that's something to watch tonight.
All right, let's jump into some of our picks for tonight's game. What is one of your bets that you got rolling?
I like the over. I think points will be scored here. Again, I don't think much of the Minnesota defense as it is. Now, we saw them lose to Tampa Bay last week. Evans had the touchdown. Godwin looked pretty good. Baker Mayfield, as bad as I think he is, was a serviceable QB. And now you're going to go up against an Eagles offense. And again, no Kenneth Gainwell. So how much do they utilize that running game? And I think we'll see a bounce back performance from Jalen Hurts, from Devonta Smith, from AJ Brown. The one thing I said a lot, especially on the DFS show, and why Jalen Hurts was actually my fade of the week for the DFS quarterback coach last week, was that Bill Belichick had about a year and a half to prepare for playing the Eagles on opening night. You give Bill Belichick that much time to game plan for you, you're probably not going to look too good offensively here. And they really didn't. And Hurts had a terrible game. Now they're going to have an opportunity where Minnesota's had a week. They're not a good defense as it is anyway. So I look for a big bounce back from the Eagles offense. And then on the flip side, the issues that the Eagles had on defense and that secondary woes that they're going to deal with the injuries, knowing Jefferson, Addison, Hockenson, Osborne, that crew. So give me the points tonight over to the 49.
Yeah, I agree with the Eagles side of things there. I do think their offense, and especially Hurts, combining with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, bounce back for Dallas Goedert. I do think they're going to have their way against this Vikings secondary that's very inexperienced and young outside of Harrison Smith at safety. But I think if you get Brown and Smith on, man-to-man coverage, I think Hurts is going to have a field day in this spot. I think Kenneth Gainwell being out isn't a huge loss for a backfield that rotates guys and has other guys to step up. And obviously Hurts running the ball too. But give me the Eagles 6.5 here. Honestly, not doing it just because I am a fan of the team, but I do think I love getting the Eagles, under a touchdown here to cover. We saw this exact same matchup basically last year in week 2, the Monday Night Football game at home for the Eagles, and the Eagles handled it. 24-7 was that final score. The defense frustrated Kirk Cousins. He threw 3 picks in the game. They held Justin Jefferson in check for the most part. Limited the offense overall for the Vikings, and especially Kirk Cousins, getting to him multiple times in the backfield there. And I think it's huge that their center again is out for this against this Eagles D line. That's Jalen Carter, Fletcher Cox if he plays, but all along the defensive front they're very strong. Their guard I mentioned is questionable; he might be out, Darisaw, so that's notable. And I just think that Kirk Cousins in prime time, it's not gone well for him lately.
Never.
Here's some stats as Cousins in primetime games last year was 1-5 against the spread. So it's prime time like Thursday night, Monday night, Sunday night, or like a London game. But 1-5 against the spread for Kirk last year with the Cousins. His teams as underdogs in primetime night games too. Overall his career, he's 3-12 straight up and 5-10 against the spread. On the other side, Jalen Hurts at home in night games last year was 6-1-1 against the spread, or actually over his last 3 years, 6-1-1 against the spread. So he's a guy that shows up at night. Kirk Cousins does not for the most part. But I do think the Eagles defense will have to just, they're going to have to get to Cousins here and not allow those big plays to Jefferson, Hockenson. But I do think it should be an Eagles win here.
That's definitely the big difference between last year's meeting and this year's meeting is last year in week 2, they had Irv Smith and Adam Thielen. This year they have TJ Hockenson and Jordan Addison. They go along with Justin Jefferson. So I would say a large upgrade in offensive talent there for them. But it's hard to argue with the Cousins history on primetime games. I would agree with you.
Yeah.
I think the Eagles take this game as it is. I just think points will be scored one way or the other. We could see the Eagles score 35 today, and still hit the over. So, I would go Eagles in the over if I was parlaying it tonight. That's just the way I'd approach it.
Yeah. All right. So, if you want to go some alt lines for both on a same game parlay, Eagles money line with a lower total. I think we both agree with that one.
Sure.
How about some props for this? I'll throw one out first here. And I mentioned, just with the Eagles, questionable depth right now, especially at linebacker, now that Kobe Dean is on IR. Also with Reed Blankenship hurt. I think it's going to be a trouble for them guarding TJ Hawkinson specifically. And I like Hawkinson's over receptions, over 4.5 receptions. Minus 166 in DraftKings, not ideal, but I still like paying that because I think he gets at least 5 catches here. In week 1, we saw the big storyline over the summer was, all right, how are they going to replace Adam Thielen's production? They bring in Jordan Addison, obviously, as a rookie, but Hawkinson was the guy that's like, all right, he's probably going to step up to be maybe the second target behind Jefferson. And week 1, that came true. He had 9 targets, 8 receptions on his 9 targets too. Only had 35 receiving yards. A lot of dink and dunk, short yardage plays, but the 8 receptions on 9 targets is huge. You
saw how this last season finished. There's a reason TJ Hawkinson was tight end 2 in fantasy football after the trade to Minnesota. Cousins just immediately just locked in on him, and then they just gave him a whole bag of money too. So they're going to make sure that they get their value out of him. I think Andrew Cooper's snap kind of article is kind of interesting, where KJ Osborne actually outsnapped Jordan Addison by a decent share there.
Veteran receiver.
Yeah, but it was still Addison that ended up being the one that made the big play, obviously, in that game. So just something to watch. Maybe that's a week 1, adjustment period. We saw a lot of rookies, surprisingly, in week 1, outside of Zay Flowers, really, have their roles either more than a timeshare or get the bottom half of a split. Bijan was just slightly above Algier. Jahmyr Gibbs barely played with Montgomery. And then Addison, Jackson Smith, and Jigma, those guys played below other guys that were ahead of them on the roster. So maybe week 2 that changes a little bit more. We see more Addison here, but Hawkinson to me always felt like the number 2, and hard to argue with the production in week 1 in terms of targets and receptions.
Yeah, and you mentioned last week the Mac Jones and the Patriots kind of throwing all over the Eagles defense and the tight ends for the Patriots. Hunter Henry, Mike Gesicki combined for 8 catches for 92 yards and a touchdown on 9 targets. I think, you kind of pencil in Hawkinson for a similar type production here. I think he goes over 4.5 catches. He had, when he joined Minnesota last year after that trade, he had at least 6 catches in 6 of 11 games, and was targeted again. He was targeted heavily by Cousins in that late surge of the season. So I think it's gonna be a similar situation here. Last year in this matchup, for what it's worth, the Vikings when they played the Eagles, as I mentioned, the tight ends Irv Smith and Johnny Munt combined for 7 catches on 11 targets. So I feel like this is a spot where the Vikings offense knows they can target the tight ends, and especially with those late completions. And if, I have the Eagles winning this, if they are up by a couple scores late, I feel like it's going to be a lot of dump offs to Hawkins and try to move the chains.
So John Ewing, I'm not sure you saw this tweet or not. He works for BetMGM doing their data and PR department, tweeted out that tonight, TJ Hawkinson over 4.5 receptions is the most bet player prop on BetMGM tonight. He says 99% of the money is on over 4.5 receptions on the BetMGM app. So,
wow, a lot of people are thinking my way, I guess.
Yeah, very, very chalk play today. But that's probably why it's minus 166 on the DK. Everybody's just hammering the over there.
The minus 166 is actually the cheapest out there, too, because I think on BetMGM it's like minus 185 or something.
If 99% of the most bet player prop is on the over, the juice is going to be flowing in there. When do they just move the line? When does it go to 5?
Right. I was waiting for it because I would take plus money at 5.5 too. But you know what this means, though? All the money's coming in. He's going to be at 4 catches. He's going to get 4 catches in the fourth quarter, and the NFL is going to whistle down and be like, "Hey, Kirk, throw to Jefferson." And
script. Hopefully, the script tonight isn't what it was for Aaron Rodgers. So
rough one for Rodgers in the script. All right, what else you got player prop wise?
Yeah, listen, I'm in sort of the same sentiment as you, where I think that the Vikings trail in this game. So I went with the over passing yards on Kirk Cousins here. Again, the secondary and defense for Philly seems a little susceptible. Upgraded passing weapons there for Cousins compared to the meeting they last had. I'm bullish on the yards here for Cousins. They're just going to throw a ton. You're not going to be able to run into the Philly front seven with Madison or anybody like that. It's going to be a step back throw all day here for Cousins. So it may be ugly. They may not win. I'm betting the over, so I might as well bet the yards. So let's go Cousins over 266.5.
Yeah, I could see him chucking it a lot in this game. Especially.
I wonder what's his pass attempts prop at? Let's
pull it up.
Let me check that one right here. Pass attempts. What do you think it would be at? 30, 38 probably? Let's see.
Yeah, I would say like 35.
37.5. Yeah, 37.5. Minus 140 on the over to 37.5 there. So
I can see him throwing it 40 times.
I could probably go there. Yeah. So give me the over on the Cousins passing props here.
All right. All right. I'm going over on Dallas Goedert's receiving yards, 46.5. He was held catchless in week 1. If you have him on your fantasy team, you are well aware of that. But I see a bounce back here for him. There was some talk from the Eagles OC and the head coach, Nick Sirianni, this week that they got to get Goedert involved more after he was held catchless. We actually saw this last year with the Eagles. Devontae Smith was held catchless in week 1, came back the next game and was more involved, more targeted. I think he had like 8 receptions for 90 yards or something. I see a similar thing with Goedert where they're going to look to get him involved early. The 46.5 yards line here, he had 45 plus receiving yards in 9 of his 12 regular season games last year when healthy. I mean, this is a guy that's easily the third target behind Brown and Devontae Smith. I could see Hawkinson having a lot of success, especially in the middle of the field against the Vikings linebacking core. It's really not great. I also think that, Goedert is just going to be motivated too in this spot to stretch some longer gains. He's a guy that, I'd stay away from his receptions prop because he could easily have 3 catches for, 50 yards, something like that. But yeah, I like the over here on Goddard's receiving yards.
Sure. We got Michael Rojas in chat saying he's got Devonta Smith first touchdown. I don't hate it. I don't hate that. First,
I can see that too. Yep.
What was it? Was it 2 years ago? We were just hammering the Devontae Adams first touchdown prop. He was just constantly scoring for Green Bay as the first touchdown of that game. It was a pretty fruitful one. I do like Devonta Smith though here tonight. I think that the yards for him go over. I'm a big fan of what could be against this Minnesota defense. Again, Evans and Godwin last week had no trouble at all against this Vikings defense with Baker Mayfield throwing it. So I'm bullish on both Smith and A.J. Brown. But A.J. Brown had the higher yardage total, so I just went with the lesser yardage total for Smith, thinking that he can get there. On the Goddard thing, I will say, last week, tight ends are going to struggle against New England. They usually always do. Kyle Duggar is one of the best tight end cover safeties in the entire NFL. He's just a big, fast guy, so not shocking to see Goddard get shut down. They just do a really good job of that against opposing tight ends. So I could see a bounce back week this week against Minnesota here, who does not have great defense against tight ends. So I like that play, and I'm going the over on my yards as well.
All right. I could see, they do have Harrison Smith, obviously a veteran safety there, but I feel like he's going to be more used as for a free safety valve to be over the top of Smith and Brown rather than being one-on-one a lot with Goddard. I mean, maybe I'm wrong on that, Reed, but I do think that is going to open up things for Goddard. It's Michael Rojas, the Devontae Smith first touchdown. It's plus 900 on DraftKings right now. Pretty juicy for that one. Anytime touchdown for Smith is at plus 150. I think that's a bet that Howard Bender actually gave out in his Best Bets article over on Fantasy Alarm. So if you want to check that out, he gives out some of his picks for tonight's game, offers some player props as well. We have Mulroyd commenting in the chat here saying Sirianni said he wants to get the ball to Goddard. Yeah, Sirianni and the offensive coordinator, Brian Johnson, both had some quotes this week saying we got to get Goddard more involved. It's going to be a similar vein to what we saw last year, week 1. Devontae Smith had 0 catches. the next game he came out, I have it 7 catches for 80 yards in that second game, week 2, which was coincidentally against Minnesota, as I mentioned. They played in week 2.
That's something that Minnesota's going to have to deal with, and obviously the element that Jalen Hurts provides is, defenses can't just sit in a regular cover. They have to always have a spy, and as Jalen Hurts moves, it shifts the defense around. Guys cheat in a little bit in case Jalen Hurts takes off, and that just allows for receivers to get there and make some extra cuts. So, I'm with both of these plays here.
All right. So, as I mentioned in the fantasyalarm.com, go check out Howard Bender's Best Bets article for tonight. We also have the NFL DFS Showdown playbook that's live right now for tonight's game. So you can get all that with the All-Pro subscription and get on that. Obviously, with tonight, with the Bettorcast, Thursday Night Football Bettorcast, we got that rolling again, too. If you haven't seen, in week 1, we did some better casts for Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football. Just a good chance to really jump in and win some prizes. Pre-game questions are now live for tonight's Eagles-Vikings matchup. Go download the Bettorcast app for free here and then submit your picks now for tonight's game. And then during the game, you can kind of answer some over-under questions, what team will score next, all that stuff. No purchase or subscription necessary. It's always free to play with this, and with Watch Thursday Night Football just with us as you're following along on your phone. You can play the free contest, win tickets, win authentic NFL signed gear and collectibles as well. The more tickets you win, the more questions you get right and all that. So download the free Bettorcast app right now in the Apple app and Google Play stores. You must be at least 18 years of age as well. We have Ethan Quimby chiming in on the chat here. What's up, Ethan? Kirk Cousins over 38.5 passing attempts is a lock for him. Soared over it last year versus the Eagles, and assuming Eagles handle the Vikings defense, Kirk, you will need to throw a ton tonight. That's similar what you were just saying, John.
Yeah, I said that exact play. I agree 100%. I went for the passing yards, and then I looked at the pass attempts. DraftKings Sportsbook had it at 37.5. So if you're in a spot where you can shop your lines, Ethan, go get the 37.5 than the 38.5 on DraftKings Sportsbook. I know it's not always easy for everybody, Dan, to shop lines, have money in multiple sports books and all that stuff. But if you can afford to do it, if you're able to do it, you got to be shopping lines. Some places will have different lines across the board. So again, for me, DK Sportsbook short at 37.5. I like obviously the over 38.5 too, but if you can get the extra attempt there for you, it could make it be all the difference.
I like Ethan's mentioned that he soared over it last year. Yeah, looking back, he had 46 pass attempts last year in this same matchup, and
and the game that
they were trailing. For the whole second half, they were trailing. I see something similar here. If the Eagles get out to a big lead, we're going to see Cousins throwing it a ton. Especially, the Eagles D line is going to bottle up Madison in the run game. So, all right, So we're on the same pages with those. By the way, not to poo-poo your passing yards pick for Kirk, but last year he did have only 221 passing yards in that game. But
better receivers this year.
Yes,
Dan. You got to listen. Better receivers.
Yeah, I got Hawkinson rolling. So
we got Hawkinson. We got Addison. We got an injured secondary for Eagles. Let's ride.
Yeah, I'm with it. All right, so those are our picks for tonight's games. Again, if you got any more in the chat that you want to chime in with, we'll definitely touch on those. Appreciate everyone tuning in here and putting your picks out there. Awesome stuff. All right, let's look at some baseball picks tonight because as we're watching this Thursday night football game, it's always good to have a couple baseball bets going too. Second screen, or we got games starting up before this Thursday night football game, so get some action on these baseball bets. All right, I'll let you go first here. What is your top pick tonight, man?
I like the team total over for Boston here in that game too. They got Clark Schmidt on the mound. I think Red Sox in general are probably in a good spot here. Clark Schmidt very bad against lefties. The Red Sox can roll a lineup out there that's like 6 or 7 lefties deep. And Schmidt also bad on the road versus at home this year. So, I know the Red Sox offense is really starting to slump late. They fired Chaim Bloom today. So that season's basically tanking out the last 2 weeks, but I could see Clark Schmidt struggling here today against the Red Sox.
Yeah, we yesterday on the MLB DFS show, we were touching on Schmidt a little bit against the Red Sox. That game got rained out again. It's like the second time his starts.
2 doubleheaders this series.
Yeah.
So.
So, yeah, we got the first game between the Red Sox and Yankees going on right now, 5-0 lead for the Red Sox. So good vibes for your team total.
5-0. It was 1-0 when the show started.
5-0 now in the ninth inning.
What do we get here? Story hit a homer. Sedan homered again. Nice.
So, yeah, we'll keep that going into the second game of the doubleheader.
Agreed.
All right, I'm going the Orioles money line here. Kyle Bradish on the mound for Baltimore. He's been really good. Basically turned into like the ace for the Orioles now. He's got a 2.38 ERA and a 2.88 FIP over his last 7 starts since the beginning of August. Orioles have also won all 7 of those games that Bradish has started. He's posted 6 straight quality starts. The Rays offense has been, kind of like league average against right-handed pitching over the last couple weeks. 319 WOBA in the split. I think Bradish is going to do his thing on the mound, and the Orioles offense is going to provide some run support. I'm sure of it because they have Aaron Savali in the mound. He's actually stumbled ever since he came over to the Tampa rotation at the trade deadline. He's got a 4.29 ERA since the deadline, 5.31 ERA over his last 5 starts too. He hasn't been as elite as he was with the Guardians. His ERA is started to rise a little bit. His expected ERA is still higher, almost a full run higher than his current ERA. So there could be a couple more shakier outings coming. And the Orioles offense against right-handed pitching among the league's best right now over the past week. 371 WOBA, 233 ISO in this split. So give me the Orioles at home. And the overarching storyline here is they've lost back-to-back games, the Orioles, against the Cardinals, no less. So they're coming in here on a 2-game losing streak. They haven't lost 3 games in a row in over 2 months since like the start of July. And it's only happened twice this whole season. The Orioles have lost at least 3 games in a row. So they're a team that bounces back. They don't get stuck on losing streaks. And especially lately, they haven't done it in, again, over 2 months. So give me the Orioles to win here, bounce back.
Yeah, I like that call a lot. A line for me that I am very confused on. Sometimes we talk about these like suspicious looking lines. You're getting Jose Urena over 2.5 earned runs allowed at plus 100 on DraftKings Sportsbook. Let me read off the numbers for Jose Urena in his 6 starts, 6 appearances this season. Now it's been a little bit since he's pitched at the major league level because he's been that dreadful.
He's now on the White Sox, right? Yeah.
Now on the White Sox. So he's appeared in 6 games this year. He has an 8.46 ERA, a 9.70 FIP, a 4.84 K per 9, a 6.45 walks per 9, allowing 3.6 home runs per 9. Is he 31% home run to fly ball rate? Those are just his overall numbers on the year. And then if you want to break it down against lefties, now he's facing the Minnesota Twins. They have a lot of lefties in their lineup. Against lefties this year, lefties are hitting 388 with a 5.11 weighted on base and a 7.96 slugging percentage against Jose Urena. Why are you getting even money on the earned run line?
Yeah.
This could be over in 2 swings. Like Minnesota is a strikeout or home run team, and they're facing a pitcher that doesn't strike anybody out, and it's giving up 3.6 home runs per 9.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, we've been dead wrong on some calls this week, no doubt about it. But I just don't know. I don't see how Urena doesn't give up 2.5 earned runs here against Minnesota at plus even money. This line should be 150. It's even money. I'm taking it, betting it.
I'm with you because I'm looking at the Twins lineup. They have 6 lefties in the lineup.
Yeah. Kirilloff, Kepler, Blanco's a switch hitter, Julian, Wallner. Yeah. Those are just the ones that are off the top of my head. They probably have more lefties in their lineup. But those are just the lefty numbers. The righty numbers aren't any better. Yeah. Against righties, it's a 6.59 slug and a 4.38 WOBA. I mean, it's not good.
Yeah, I looked at I didn't give it out here, but I might actually place the bet now that I see you're on this. I looked at the Twins like run line in this. I do think they should win this game easily. Kenta Maeda on the mound for Minnesota. He's got some good road numbers this year. So I do think they should handle the White Sox. The only thing I could think of is, his first start with the White Sox last Saturday, he went 4 innings, only allowed 1 earned run. It was against the Tigers, so keep that in mind. But maybe people are looking at that, the sports books saying like, oh, maybe he only goes 4 innings and only allows a run.
He hasn't been a good major league pitcher in like 7 years.
I agree.
Like it's I don't know what we're looking at. I'm trying to see what do they have for some home run props here for Minnesota. Kirilloff is plus 650.
What about Polanco? Because Ethan Quimby chiming in here saying he loves the arena pick, your arena pick. He said, however, my sneaky MLB prop tonight is twin second baseman Jorge Polanco hits or total bases because he's a perfect 7 for 7 when facing arena in his career.
Plus 360 for the homer for Polanco. Wallner's 360. Kepler's 370. I might throw a dart at Kirilloff at plus 650. He's definitely a power hitter. I know the numbers on the year haven't looked that great. He spent a lot of time on the IL, but this guy is not a major league pitcher. I don't understand. He's allowing a 4 homers per 9 to righties and a 3.3 to lefties. I mean, I don't know.
Ethan, I like that Jorge Polanco pick too, because I was looking at his props too, because that whenever you look at BVP numbers and you see a guy batting 1,000 in his BVP, it's something you got to take note of. I know it's a small sample size, 7 for 7, but still. And Polanco's coming in hitting well, hitting about 300 in his last 7 games, hitting 321 over his last 15. So I like that Jorge Polanco pick.
The last time Jose Urena had an ERA under 5 was 2018 5 years ago. 5 years ago. How is this guy still pitching in
Jose
baseball?
Urena.
What does he have on MLB owners that they continue to employ and pay this man? Hasn't had an ERA under 5 in 5 years.
It's like,
why is it even money on the 2.5 earned? I don't understand. You know what's going to happen is there's going to be an error, a kick ball somewhere, and he's going to give up 6 runs, but only 1 earned, and we're going to get screwed that way. But I'm just going to take the 2.5 plus 100.
Well, I'm also looking at the weather report, and no rain expected for that game, so it's not like he's going to get a shortened start because of that. So,
no, that was my initial thought too. I was like, well, is he going to open? But he threw 4 innings last time, so like they're starting him. They're starting him. I don't get it. I don't understand it.
It's the White Sox. They're not playing for anything right now, so they're just rolling them out there.
Yeah, I guess so. So if I'm wrong, whatever. But I don't think so.
I like it. All right.
Flag planting, Jose Urena over. Cut the clip. Tweet it out. We're doing it.
We're going to be monitoring that during Vikings-Eagles.
It's going to be a sad day.
All right. I'm going we both got a pick on Logan Webb here. I'll go first. Logan Webb over 4.5 strikeouts for me, minus 125 on BetMGM. I see, this matchup against the Rockies, they have a 25% strikeout rate against right-handed pitching over the past week. And Webb has been over this, like, I think it's 22 out of 30 starts this season. This is a lower line. I think it's low because he's pitching in cores. So that's obviously, you got to take that into account. Maybe a shorter outing, but I still think he can give up a few runs and get over the strikeout prop. He's a guy that goes, 6 innings for the Giants because he's one of their guys that can actually go 6+ innings right now. But also he just faced the Rockies last start and only had 4 strikeouts. So that is probably why maybe the familiarity against the Rockies will lead them to not strike out as much, but it might help. I think Webb makes a couple adjustments and gets to 5+ Ks here because he's been doing it more often than not. Again, 22 out of his 30 games this year have been 5+ strikeouts. And he's also done it in I'm just pulling up this stat. He's done it in 5 of his last 8 outings too, getting 5+ Ks. So I like the over on Logan Webb.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Again, you said I have a prop on him as well. I'm going to go under the 2.5 earned on him. Again, I get it's in cores, so it's always a risky play. But I just don't think the Rockies, obviously, it's not me that I don't think, just in general, they're not a good team here. Logan Webb is a very good pitcher. I think he can keep it under the 3 runs tonight in cores and get it done here. So you get minus 135 on it. Again, I'm just taking the pitcher talent over the lineup talent. This hasn't been a year where you have to fade pitchers in cores because the Rockies lineup isn't that good.
Yeah.
In years past, you weren't throwing pitchers in cores because they were running up against a lineup that had like Carlos Gonzalez and Troy Tulowitzki and, all these Nolan Arenado. And, they had guys that could do some damage in their lineup. They just don't have that anymore. So you can pitch against them in Colorado and not be too worried about it. So give me the Webb under 2.5.
Yeah, the Rockies over the past 2 weeks, 307 WOBA, 77 WRC plus, and a 26% strikeout rate against right-handed pitching over these past 2 weeks.
He just shut him out over 6 innings in his last outing.
It's interesting, too, that this game, it's in cores, obviously, but the total has also been going down a little bit. It's now at 10.
Yeah.
It was at like 10.5. I think it was at 11.
Well, the Giants kind of suck, too.
That's the thing. But I think – the Giants are favored by they're minus 238 favorites on the money line too. So it's like, all right, the Rocky side of things probably won't be scoring a lot of runs.
Who's pitching for Colorado?
Chase Anderson.
Chase Anderson. Another guy that I don't get how he has an MLB job, but
because he pitches because he's on the Rockies. That's the only reason.
What's the line on the under in this game?
Minus 102 on DraftKings to the under 10. I would consider that. I mean,
I would consider the under 10. Again, I'm taking the under 2.5 in Webb. So unless I think the Giants offense that hasn't really scored many runs this year hangs like an 8 spot or something like that, I think the under might be in play there in this game.
All right, I'm glad we're both on Logan Webb here. Then that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
All right, let's flip gears now to college football, and it's time for Servo 7, Bettor Edge Servo 7 contest. Here's where I give you one free pick for this week's totals competition over at bettoredge.com. Go over to bettoredge.com/bettor, BETTOR. Or you can download the Bettor Edge app for free right now. There's a pool of 20 games up there for this Servo 7 contest where you just pick 7 over-unders from Saturday's college slate. Just pick 7 games, go over-under on any of them out of those 20, and the top winner gets paid out. Completely free to enter. So head over to bettoredge.com/bettor and take your free shot at winning $50 this weekend. Awesome stuff. You enter for free, you win $50. And you get $20 for free when you sign up and verify. No deposit is even required. So get over to Bettor Edge right now and jump into this competition. It's been awesome. You gotta beat our producer Adam Bernard. He won in week 1. I missed who won last week, but I don't think our producer went back to back there. But it's easy. Easy to enter. Easy to just pick 7 games over unders. My first one I'll give out for free here is one of my picks in this contest. I like the under in BYU Arkansas. So this is a matchup we saw last year, BYU against Arkansas. It was a 52-35 final score with Arkansas winning. I see this one being a lot different, being much lower scoring because on one side, we get an Arkansas offense that's without star running back Rocket Sanders. This is a huge loss for them. Their offense has been just much less dangerous in the early going. He was out last week too. They only scored 28 points against Kent State, a much worse team, much worse defense than what BYU is. Kent State allowed 56 points to UCF in week 1, and then they turn around and Arkansas only scores 28 points because, again, Rocket Sanders is out. The offense is having to lean more on KJ Jefferson running it or throwing it, which isn't his strongest suit. But the Jefferson-Sanders 1-2 running punch is what made this offense really dynamic. But with him out, they're having to lean on some of these backup running backs. It's just a notable downgrade to the offense. And on the other side, BYU's offense had to replace a lot of its main contributors from last year over the offseason. They lose dual threat quarterback Jaron Hall, running back Chris Brooks, who was their workhorse, Puka Nacua, who's a fantasy football darling right now, waiver wire pickup. He's also gone. These are the top 3 guys from their offense. They had to replace all of them. They bring in Keaton Slovis, who's like more of a game manager type of quarterback. Definitely not a threat on the ground as Jaron Hall was. And the offense is just a step down overall. And the other thing to look at, both teams, they're both had some issues on the defensive side last year, but they both made changes at the defensive coordinator positions for this season. And the early returns from both have shown that they've got improvements on that side of the ball. I mentioned, BYU's defense or Arkansas's defense holding Kent State. It was like a 28-7 final in that one. But when BYU and Arkansas both played FBS opponents so far this year, they each played one game against the FBS opponent, another one against an FCS team. But both those FBS games both went under. Both were lower scoring. I see this one being a grinded out matchup, especially with BYU coming in with some revenge on their mind from last year. I think they're going to want to limit this Arkansas offense. And then Arkansas, too, probably, is looking ahead because they got some big games in the SEC coming up next week, in the next 2 weeks. So I like this one to be lower scoring. Give me the under 47.5. So, yeah, jump on that one in the Better Edge contest right now. That's one of the games that you can pick from, but I do like that one going under. By the way, over on fantasyalarm.com right now, you can check out my best bets article for week 3. I gave out 3 picks on that. In that article, broke down games broke down picks for Tennessee, Florida, Wyoming, Texas, and Colorado State, Colorado, which is a very notable game. Colorado back in action. So I'm not going to be giving them out here, but definitely go check out the article because and you need the All-Pro subscription. But again, you can cash a few of these bets, cash some DFS lineups. You easily make that back, but you get the free 7-day trial for the All-Pro subscription either way. But definitely check out that article for some of my top picks. I'll give out 2 more here. Sticking in with some SEC theme here. Let's go to Georgia Tech, Ole Miss. I like Georgia Tech plus 18.5. You can get on FanDuel minus 115. This is a huge sandwich spot, look ahead spot, letdown for Ole Miss, in my opinion, because next week they have Alabama matchup, which Lane Kiffin, this Ole Miss team is going to be really focused and wanting to hand Alabama a second loss after they just lost last week. I think Ole Miss is maybe looking ahead a little bit to that game. But also, they're coming off a hard-fought game against Tulane on the road last week, where it was a tight game and much tighter than the final score indicated. They ended up winning by double digits and covered the spread, but that was because of a late fumble return touchdown at the end of the game. Was also against Tulane's backup quarterback with Michael Pratt sidelined, so it really should not have been that close. It was also on the road too. But they survived it. And again, the final score is not indicative of how that game was going. And I think, combine that with just this situation where they have to face Alabama next week. I just don't see how the players, the coaching staff, Lane Kiffin especially, is going to be so, too motivated to really, beat the brains off of Georgia Tech here, which is a much easier opponent than what he just faced in Tulane, much easier than Alabama is. I just think it's a sneaky spot to back Georgia Tech. Tech covered as underdogs in week 1 against Louisville, put up 34 points, faced an FCS opponent in week 2, scored 48 points. But overall, this offense is not something you could take lightly. Haynes King transfers in from Texas A&M. They have a new OC in Buster Faulkner. I think this offense is going to really push it to Ole Miss here, especially late in the game. If this is like a 20-point lead or whatever for Ole Miss, I could easily see a late cover from Georgia Tech playing hard to the end while Ole Miss is maybe running some, run-heavy offense or taking some players out to rest with Alabama coming up. So that whole mindset, I think this is prime for a late Georgia Tech cover. So yeah, give me the Georgia Tech to cover this.
Yeah, I mean, again, you're the college football expert. I just follow your wisdom here. So if that's what you're in on, I'll ride with you, my friend.
All right, let's flip the script here. And I just talked about Ole Miss. They're playing Alabama next week. Let's back Alabama though this week. Coming off that loss against Texas is really bad, but
Texas back.
Texas might be back. But Alabama's teams, when they suffer a loss, especially early in the season, Nick Saban has his guys ready to go to really pound the next opponent. I feel bad for South Florida here. That's who Alabama's playing. I'm not scared of this big spread, 32.5. But if you'll remember back in week 1, I backed Alabama to cover as 39-point favorites against Middle Tennessee, and it cashed because they still have uncertainty at the quarterback position. They have Jalen Milroe, who is, he made some mistakes in that Texas game. I think they want to make sure that they get reps to their other quarterbacks, Ty Simpson, Tyler Buckner. That just like kind of leans into exactly what I said in week 1 for Alabama, that the offensive game plan isn't going to slow down or stop in the second half when they have a big lead. They're going to get all 3 quarterbacks in. They're going to be calling plays like it's a real game environment for them. Even in a blowout win, they could win. They beat Middle Tennessee, by the way, 56-7, covering that big spread. I see another, 50-plus points for Alabama here to cover. I don't see South Florida also scoring much to keep it close at all. And, the vibe is that Alabama's might be down or, take it easy on South Florida. But I don't think I think they're coming in ready to prove everyone that they're truly here. This is a great, ramp up spot for them with Ole Miss coming to town next week. I think this is a great spot for Alabama just to get back on the swing of things, especially on the offensive side, to get things figured out. And also, the 32.5 is actually low in my opinion. I feel like they should be favored by like 35 or more here, because Middle Tennessee is actually power rated higher than South Florida is. South Florida is like, they're in a complete rebuild. Their defense is arguably the worst in power conference teams. They're in the Big 12 now, UCF is, and they're arguably the worst defense of any power conference team. They gave up 41 points to Western Kentucky in week 1, and then didn't look good against an FCS team last week against Florida A&M. I think it's a spot where Bama's putting up, 50-plus points again, covering the big spread. So, yeah, give me Alabama here.
Yeah, again, hard to argue with that. I was going to ask you, would you take a first half total on Bama here over the full game?
I would look to I would look at the Alabama to cover the first half too, because I do think that they're just going to come out of the gate with a great mindset to really put it on and
coming
not
off
worry
a loss,
about it.
put your stamp on it, be up 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns by halftime or something.
I could easily see that. Yeah. I think the first half spread's about 20 or so, but even still, I think they can cover that. But yeah, even in the full game though, I just think the offense is going to be still humming even in the fourth quarter with, whichever backup quarterback is in, because they want to give these guys reps. So,
right.
All right. So those are some picks. Again, go over to fantasyalarm.com right now. You can check out my best bets for Tennessee, Florida, which is a big matchup this weekend. I got a pick for Wyoming, Texas. You mentioned, is Texas back? Well, maybe I got a pick for that game. And then Colorado State, after Nebraska let me down last week against Colorado, but we'll see what happens this week. All right, so those are some of our picks. Again, we covered Vikings-Eagles to start this show, so go back and watch some of our bets for Vikings-Eagles for Thursday Night Football, and also give out some baseball picks for tonight. Appreciate everyone joining in here. Stay tuned, 5 p.m. Eastern. We got the MLB DFS live show. Jon Impemba coming back with you guys, and Colby Conway for that one. 7 p.m. Eastern, we got the high stakes fantasy football show with Eric Balkman. And then, we got watch Thursday Night Football. Get the Bettorcast app and follow along and win some awesome prizes. We'll be back tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern here on Bettor Sports Network. Thanks for everyone jumping in here on a Thursday, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow. Good luck.